This lesson will demonstrate how the bevel and emboss and the satin effects work to make an object look three-dimensional. First, what are beveling and embossing? A bevel is an edge that was carved at an angle to make an object either stick up or sink down, usually in a hard surface like wood or metal. And embossing is done in paper usually. The surface is punched from behind to stick up or punched from above to sink down. Now the satin effect basically makes everything look puffy and shiny. So let's see how they work. First we select the object. We go to the effects panel over here. I'm going to stick with the object option and go to FX, Bevel and Emboss. And this is the default that we always get. It's got an inner bevel with a smooth technique and the direction is up. I'm going to change the technique right away to chisel hard so that it's more obvious what is happening. Now the inner bevel means that all the carving has happened inside the sharp edge of the object. The outer bevel, all the carving is outside the sharp edge of the object so that it looks like it's a hard surface. I'm going to change the size just to make everything more obvious. And you can soften this. Now, if you think of it as carving in wood or metal, this softening is not very realistic as far as the bevel goes, but you can use it. Why not? And the depth has to do with how much it sticks up from the surface. Now, we've seen these shading options before. The angle is where the sun is, and you can always use global light, which you might have set up earlier, and you use it throughout your document, having the same light angle all the time. The altitude is where the light source is in comparison to the paper. 0 degrees is having the light source right on the paper, and 90 degrees, which I'll show you, means that the light source is right above the object. And you can see what it does to the shadows. It makes them almost disappear, so it's not very effective. I'm going to go back to 40 degrees. It's usually best to have an altitude that's somewhere between 0 and 90. We've seen highlight and shadow before. You know that you can change the colors and you can change the modes. And some of them do make a difference. And of course you can always change the opacity, and I always like to do that. Now let's try it with type. You simply go to the text option here, bevel and emboss. And this is an inner bevel. And I like to use chisel hards because it's more realistic. And let's try the down, and let's make the size smaller. And that looks pretty nice. I think that is effective. It seems to work better with type or small objects when you do the inner bevel than it works with larger objects. At least to my eye, it looks more realistic. And I'm just going to keep the defaults here. Now embossing is different. It definitely looks different. Emboss. Okay, now that is the default. I'm going to make it larger, and I'm going to do chisel hard once again so we can see the differences more easily. Now here you see the edge of the star has been affected both inside and outside the edge. You can especially see it here. See how different that is from the beveling. Now we can change the direction. And once again, that doesn't convince me very much. I prefer the up. You can soften. Now, I would say if you're working with paper, and depending on the tool that you use, you could definitely have softer edges. So this is somewhat realistic. Now, as far as the depth goes, the depth setting does affect how deep it looks and how much it is sinking into the paper. And we'll just keep the rest of these shading options at the default because you know what they do. Let's try it with the type. And we will emboss. And that looks pretty nice as it is, but it looks better at a smaller size, and we can have it stick up or stick down. I think that really looks very handsome. We'll leave the rest of the shading settings as they are. Now I do want to show you about Pillow Emboss. I'm going to clear the effects. You always click this icon to clear the effects and start over. Bevel and emboss, and we'll do a style is Pillow Emboss. And let's make it go down. To me, this is the most effective use of it. And it's kind of a neat effect. It almost looks like a little tray that you could put things down on while remaining flat. That's what Pillow Emboss looks like. Now with satin, I've used 2 stars here, one dark and one light, so that we can see the difference in the effects when we apply them. We just go to satin here, and this is the default. The angle is the same, multiply means the same thing. The size has a slight effect. And this is what invert is. You might use that someday. The thing that really makes the difference is this mode setting here. I'm going to try various modes just to see what they do. They affect the darker star and the lighter star differently. Color dodge. Darken. Darken seems to affect, well, it affects them both, but you can notice it most on the lighter star. And you might guess that lighten mostly affects the darker star. So it depends on the color of the object. And you should really play with those settings until you get exactly what you want. With the type, now the type is a dark object. So I am going to use the lighten mode and then reduce the size a little bit, as I usually do for type. And there you have various 3D effects. Have fun.